You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Howdy.
Nikki Sims.
That's me.
We're back.
And you can see this really great poster of mine in the background. I know the text is a little bit fuzzy for you, but it says Future Islands, which is my favorite band.
Okay.
And shout out to them. I don't think they're listening to this yet, but
We should tag them.
just think it's cool that in the season finale of Ted Lasso, their song was playing in the background. It's when Jamie and Roy, I can't remember his name right now. Roy Kent are having a conversation.
They're at the bar.
Future Islands is in the background, and Future Islands has always been like a small group to me. And they're a bunch of neat dads who rock out on stage. I love them and really excited for them to have been on that.
Yeah, they're also probably your ideal client type.
Yes.
A bunch of late 40s neat dads.
Works hard, like to have fun.
That work hard, like to have fun. And the lead singer somehow keeps fitting into skinny jeans.
I don't
Despite
think he buys
getting-
new jeans.
So if you're
My
a neat
ideal
dad
butt.
that's struggling to fit into skinny jeans, email insims@barbell-logic.com.
Or if you're a woman who wants to have to buy bigger jeans because of your big butt, I'm also your lady. Yeah, I mean, actually, this will lead right into the episode. My ideal body type
Okay.
is someone who clearly works hard, but also likes to have fun. And the way you can tell that is if they have meaty forearms,
Okay.
nice forearms, because that means they move heavy weight around. They do chin-ups, they do deadlifts.
Is this meaty?
That's pretty meaty.
Oh, okay.
And if they have a muscular back, same story. And if they have muscular legs. And then I don't want them to be super lean because that means they might just not have as much fun as I want to have.
Okay. Good to know. So go Google Future Islands, and that pretty much sets the bar. Okay.
So,
all right. I think we might have a cold open. You're going to do
that
the...
note, welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast, specifically Beast Overburden. I'm your host, Nikki Sims, joined by...
Andrew Jackson.
Yes.
Not the seventh president.
No, thank you for clarifying. You have not aged a day or 100 years. Mm-hmm.
I have not heard that joke almost every day of my life at every single grocery store or point of sale.
Yes.
My credit card has
you're
to come
Andrew
out.
Jackson. Matt is Ryan Reynolds.
And you are Nikki Sims.
Which, if you
depending
Google
on
that,
which Google search and how many Ks you use.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
life is hard sometimes.
Anyway, yeah.
Okay.
What I thought would be really interesting to talk about today, because I hear it come up sometimes talking to people about strength training, is what it actually looks like in practice to be someone who lifts. Like, I think there's this misconception that when you go into strength training, you have to start wearing shirts that don't have sleeves. You have to get like tribal tattoos. You have to start eating chicken breast and broccoli. You have to have protein shakes all the time. If you're a female, you're going to lose your breasts. You're going to your voice is going to go down an octave. Like, I think there's this illusion that you have to take on this whole new identity. And it doesn't have to be like that. It can if you want it to be. But I thought it'd be neat to talk about what the lives of lifters actually look like depending on the goals.
Right. I think people have probably for mental efficiency, maybe conserving energy. There's sort of like, I'm either on or off. It's like I'm doing it or I'm not. I'm all in or I'm not. And some of that, I think, is because of the complexity of modifying or communicating programs to fit an individual may look complicated. And so often if you're reading about how to strength train or how to do a program, there's a program and here's how to do the program. And most of the debate on the internet also is about how to be optimal. And usually because most of the people that are seriously lifting weights are trying to compete or hit 1RMs, or they want to be as big as possible, or like everything's to the extreme. I want to be as strong as possible. Strength is the most important thing in life. I want to be as big as possible because I'm a bodybuilder, or that's just like the mode that most people want to train. Then for simplicity, most of what people perceive as the thing you do is like the optimal powerlifting or bodybuilding program, which is optimal for almost nobody, very rarely.
Yeah.
And people, I find often many of my clients feel like if they can't do that optimal per, citation desperately needed, researched, peer-reviewed, backed program, then they shouldn't train at all, or they're failing, blah, 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 blah. And there, again, kind of like our last podcast, there's so many ways that you can train that are still effective for both strength, hypertrophy, and quality of life that don't look like those programs. They just need to be really clear with their coach about how much time and energy they have available. And then the coach can apply the same principles in a customized way to the individual that fits within their time and energy available. Doesn't have to be all in, 90-minute, 2-hour programs that are quote unquote optimal all the time.
Yeah. It might even, on the other side of the coin, the program that someone is given, that 5 new lifters are given, might look pretty similar to each other, but that's kind of just to get things started, and then they start to change quite a bit.
Sure.
And that can be for someone who wants to compete in powerlifting, starting from nothing. That can be for someone who is just like, I heard strength is good for me, I want to know how to get started. Or it can be for someone who wants to supplement their lifting for some other activity. It looks similar, and they go down a similar pathway based on the principle of strength training, but it's not, like you said, we're not getting people ready to be Chinese weightlifters. Like,
for sure.
They're doing their program because they're going to the Olympics.
Right.
And like my sister is going to do her program because she's a busy civil engineer who likes to rock climb and wants to get back into squatting once a week. So different.
Right.
Yeah, so different.
Yeah, I had a prospective client that was asking me questions about my thoughts on weightlifting programming and referencing what specific Chinese weightlifter accessory programming looked like versus, European versus Chinese versus Russian, and asking me like what my philosophy was. And this is somebody who has never done any weightlifting, has never cleaned or snatched in their life.
Sounds to me like they're ready to go into the training hall of the Bulgarian weightlifting team.
Perfect example of what we're talking about, where I think that, and it's good intention. It's good,
Yeah. I like the motivation
and mindset that they want to be doing what the best are doing. So they look up what the best are doing because it worked for them, but that isn't necessarily what's going to work best for the person who, in this case, the same person is working a busy, high-power corporate executive position who only has 3 hours to train a week, and yet is picking my brain about accessories that someone who all they do is train 2, sometimes 3 times a day, 5 to 7 days a week, and has to figure out ways to fill in training volume that fits within that context, not the person who only has 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a lot of content out there talking about the non-optimal way to train effectively, which is what most people need, right?
Yeah. And it comes to be that it's actually, get this phrase, it's actually simple, and it's hard, and it's effective.
This sounds familiar. Sounds
It
like
has
something
also
somebody's been saying for 6 years on a podcast.
And when you do it, you find that it is hard, but it is doable.
Can you explain this inside joke? Like everybody on the podcast is like, oh yeah, hard but doable. Of course, I've said that 100 times.
Exactly. Yeah. We collectively, as a coaching organization at Barbell Logic, we just noticed that our clients would complete a set and in the comments would be like, that was challenging, but I did it. Or that was really hard, but I totally pulled it off. And we just have this like really wonderful inventory of different ways that same phrase is said, because that is like exactly what we're trying to find.
Hard but doable.
We need it to be challenging for you, but we
are 2 for 2 now in podcasts of creating hashtags. Hashtag number 1 is all the hoots or find the hoots. Hashtag number 2, hard but doable.
HBD. And in practice, for people like you and I, like we have jobs that are quite demanding, really engaging, but we're not spending 20 hours in the gym. We don't want to do that. And for most of our clients, it's actually very similar. They have maybe 3 hours a week to train, and they can get so much done in 3 hours a week. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that also comes up when someone is thinking about getting into training and they're like, I don't have time. But it is really incredible what you can accomplish with like 3 45-minute sessions a week or,
right,
4 30-minute sessions a week.
That's right.
It doesn't need to be that much. Like less really tends to be more.
Absolutely. I mean, without hopefully sounding too much like a sales pitch, that's what our coaches are trained to do. We apply simple, hard, and effective strategies in order to get people to train in a way that's sustainable and works within whatever your personal situations are. And to your point, I had a guy who, he sent me a note a few months ago, said, I think I'm going to have to take a break from training. I really want to keep training, but I just can't keep doing what we've been doing. Because he had been doing, per our, agreed plan, 60 to 90-minute workouts for 3 to 4 barbell lifts a day, plus accessories. And he was just crushing it, hitting lifetime PRs. And he had the time to devote to, he had that kind of time to devote to his training. And I asked him, what's going on? And he said, well, I've got a newborn. I got a baby coming in about a month, and I just don't think I'm going to have the time to do this anymore. And I said, well, do you want to keep training? He said, yeah, I love what we're doing. I love the accountability. I love the structure. I love the progress. I just don't think I have the time. I said, well, we don't have to keep doing we were doing essentially like the optimal powerlifting program. And I told him, we can do 1 lift a day, or I can program 1 lift a day. You don't even have to do 1 lift a day, but I can program 1 lift a day, and then we can piece it together based on your availability.
Oh, that's smart.
And he's lifting now, on average, 10 to 15 minutes a day, 1 lift, 1 primary lift. And if he misses a day, then he can stack them and catch up, and it only takes him 30 minutes. Or sometimes he'll even stack 3 lifts and catch up, if you will. But over the course of the week, he's still doing at least 1 squat, at least 1 pull, at least 1 bench, and some sort of overhead press. And if he has extra time, he'll do some conditioning or accessories. But some weeks he does 3 sessions. Some weeks he does 5. Some weeks he does 7. It's all over the place. But the point being that there is one example of an infinite number of possibilities for how to fit a very significant, simple, hard, and effective training volume into your life. And if you can't fit 1 lift a day in, now, granted, the one caveat being he's got a home gym. So there's obviously some logistical limitations if you don't have a home gym. But if you've got a home gym, or if you have easy access to a gym, or even if you don't, and you can only get in 2 or 3 times a week, or even 1 time a week. Actually, I have a guy right now who's alternating 1 and 2 times a week based on his availability. And it's summer, so he wants to get outside. And in both cases, what's crazy is that both of these guys are hitting lifetime PRs.
That's amazing. I bet they did not expect that.
They did not expect. I didn't
also
even
you didn't
expect
expect
that.
it.
I did not expect that. Now, granted, they're both advanced lifters-ish, late intermediate advanced. I'm not suggesting this is optimal in any way, shape, or form. However, optimal within the context of, again, long-term training and quality of life improvement, it's way more optimal than not doing anything. But it's another one of these situations, like we were just talking about on the last podcast, sometimes the strategically effective thing to do is actually pull back, and less is more.
Yeah.
I'm finding more and more as people have additional stresses coming in from outside the gym that often less is more. And they're able to progress with very little frequency and volume as long as we keep it in that hard but doable range. And this is something over and over again I keep coming back to. And certainly we've learned over the years that doing something is always better than nothing. And I think it's one of the things that our coaches do best in the industry is finding ways to work with a client to figure out what it is that they can do in whatever their circumstance. If they're in a hotel, they've got a newborn, if they're traveling for work, if they're going through a divorce, if they're moving, fill in the blank.
If they're injured.
They're injured. Yes. Injuries. Let's talk about that.
Well, I would say there is no perfect training. There are periods of training where things seem to be going well. And I think every lifter looks back on periods of their training and believes that it was perfect. And it probably wasn't. It just happened that things were going really well for a period of time. I've certainly done that.
It's interesting you mentioned that. If I can interject briefly.
Yeah,
I was listening to an interview with Dorian Yates, and he was talking about how he didn't think that he reached his genetic potential.
Wow.
Mr. Universe, multiple times, considered one of the best bodybuilders ever, still thinks he didn't reach his genetic potential.
That's amazing.
So, and that's a guy whose entire life was dedicated to optimal, quote unquote, training.
Right. Yeah. I think we can always look back and think that something was perfect when it was going really well. And I think we can always imagine the state of perfection in training, that if only you could have this perfect training run, perfect everything. But I don't think life is really like that. And that's totally okay, because you can do so much without having to do a lot. Like for most of our clients, they train 3 days a week on average. It's like, I think I took an average recently. It's like 3.4 days or something. So most people train 3 days. They do 3 lifts per session, and they do something with the barbell. And like literally that's it. It can get super different, like we were talking about, from person to person. But those people, they take their like starting squat from, 135 up towards, towards 300. They've totally changed their
2x
lives.
body weight.
Yeah.
Kind of a number.
Yeah. It's amazing. And I think another thing that we should talk about is like, that's what the time dedication looks like. But there's also like, what do you have to eat like to have what you need to train? Like, it doesn't have to be whey all day. Like,
what is the most number of whey, scoops of whey somebody's told you they've taken?
I think like 4, and it was like some max gainer thing. And I was just like, oh my God, you're poor stomach.
I had a client that was taking like 8 scoops a day.
Oh my Lord. It's so much.
And then was confused that things were not working well.
Going anywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, lots of things were going places, but
too frequently at high rates.
At an incredible rate. It's like Jim Carrey running. It feels like I'm running at an incredible rate. Except it was whey protein moving at an incredible rate.
Yeah, life does not have to be that way. It's actually like, you probably need more protein than you eat right now. Most people don't eat as much protein that is useful to strength train, but it's not as much as you might think. Like, a protein shake here now and there is great, but like, I only just recently started having a protein shake here and there. Like, it's eggs, which are delicious, bacon, which is perhaps more delicious, chicken, stir fry, more stir fry, ice cream, yogurt. I would say it's protein centric in the sense that pretty much every time you eat, you're going to have protein on your plate. But then you also need to have lots of colorful stuff. You need to have greens, berries, red peppers. Like you tell your clients, like I tell my clients, like eat the rainbow. You need to have a bunch of colors on your plate, which actually ends up meaning you eat food that tastes really freaking good. Like we're not eating gas station hot dogs and protein shakes. It's actually quite different than that. You can eat really, really tasty food. If you don't want to eat a bunch of meat, you can even do it with like a plant-based diet. That comes with its own kind of set of strategy. But
trade-offs.
Yeah. Trade-offs. Everything's a trade-off.
There are no solutions, only trade-offs. Yeah. It's similar that I think that because it's mentally easier or simple to think in very binary or extreme kind of ways, that there's a tendency to feel like I'm either on my diet or off my diet, or I'm eating clean or I'm eating dirty, or like it's just like you're either on or off.
Right.
And there's such a big spectrum, and there's so many ways that you can dial things up or down without having to completely cut something out or to completely max something out. So, like you said, the common weightlifting diet is chicken breast and broccoli all day long. But the reality is that there's many different ways that you can build your plate. You can still have butter, you can still have ice cream, you can have whole milk, you can have skin on the chicken. A lot of it comes down to portion management of those things. And again, this is where I think a coach can help you identify where you might be a little bit heavier on one macro or the other based on how you're eating, but you don't have to completely eliminate. One of the things I see online all the time, if it fits your macros, or macro counting is really popular, has been for years, and certainly it's effective, but it does have this dark side, leading people down this path of eating things just because the packaging makes it easy for them to identify the macros, combining these absurd elements to create a meal. Like I saw a post from a pretty famous fitness influencer who was eating protein bars wrapped in tortillas.
Oh my gosh.
And that was it. Like that was his dinner. And in his defense, he was saying this is a cry for help. And granted, he's preparing for a bodybuilding competition. So I don't think that would be what he would recommend to most people. But I do see that all the time. It's like people's like, well, if it fits your macros, I can eat Jelly Bellies and this or that, the other thing, as long as it fits my macros. But it's just, it doesn't. What I found, and this is my personal experience, is that when I went down that rabbit hole, I stopped paying attention to how I felt and prioritized the measurable, objective metric over the bigger picture goal, which is quality of life and enjoying the food that I was eating. And you don't have to do that in order to get results. You just don't.
Yeah. Like we're trying to do this so that you feel good. And there are ways that you can train where it's not a burden to your schedule. You work it in so it actually is the positive addition to your life. And same thing when you're eating. You might have to go through periods of restriction if that's important to you. But when it's important to you, it actually feels good as well. So when it stops feeling good, you probably need to change something else. But yeah, like food, we like to eat food that makes us feel energized. You don't want to feel super bloated when you go to put on your belt and do a deadlift. It's to support how you want to feel in the gym and how you want to feel outside the gym. Anyway, this whole idea came up because my brother-in-law sent me this ridiculous video of someone just adding like 14 scoops of protein powder to a shake and drinking it because he thinks that's how I eat.
Well, in fairness, like I said, I've had clients in session having trouble maintaining certain bowel features, if you will. And upon asking what's going on, they were in the double-digit protein powder scoop
Holy moly
range, thinking that they had to hit, I think they were trying to hit like 1.5
300 grams
times their body weight, their lean, what they considered their lean body mass in terms of like grams of protein per pound of body mass. And, so they were trying to hit like 250, somewhere between 250 to 300 grams of protein.
Oh my goodness.
And not only is that not necessary, but the way they were going about it was just, it didn't feel good. And it wasn't really serving their goals any better than many other ways that could serve their goals. So again,
I really hope they had a bidet.
This is quickly steering towards the bidet and booze podcast that we talked about in our teaser.
That's the third one that comes out on Sundays. Just kidding. We haven't started that one.
If you would like a bidets and booze podcast, please leave a comment, like and subscribe, leave a 5-star review, or is it 4 stars? I don't even know. 5-star review, and we'll get on adding a third episode for bidets and booze. Big fan. I've got a tushy at home. I believe you do as well.
I have a tushy right here.
Hey.
Yeah. Anyway, I think what's really important for people to know is training, it can be about overcoming like a big fear of going into the gym, but with the right setting, with the right coach, like with the right group of people, lifting with the barbell is way more doable than you might think. It's, in fact, extremely doable, and it can add to your life. It can make training super efficient while making a huge impact. And while you might have an identity shift into someone who's focused on a specific goal of being strong, it doesn't mean that you're going to become Arnold Schwarzenegger, which actually would still be cool, like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 70s. That'd be awesome. We just want you to feel good. All right. I think it's time for us to stop.
Yeah, we're done.
Thanks for
Cut us off.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed at least most of this. If you did, give us a 5-star review. Or just please listen next time. Just kidding.
Give us another chance.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.